Brad, tell us a little bit about your situation and how you're here today.
So, yeah, I was a professional wakeboarder, dedicated my life to it, kind of left school early and went to the States and started pursuing a pro career. And when I was pushing the limits in 2014, trying a trick that I was the only one in the world to have landed at the time. And I just, backed out at the wrong time, ended up crashing into a big landing ramp that we had and broke my neck and got paralyzed from basically the shoulders down, and here I am just over 6 years later.
Whew, heavy. And so can we talk about what are some of the repercussions, side effects you experience now in your day-to-day life?
A lot of people kind of think when you break your neck and, there's a certain level where you can't feel from, that you can't feel anything. Whereas for me, it's like intense pins and needles through my entire body from my shoulders down at all times. That never goes away. Very similar. It's kind of like a burning sensation, almost similar to if you go from freezing cold water and jump into a hot pool or something, and just that really intense pins and needles feeling. And that can get overwhelming at times, but seem to have it in control with with the medications that I have been given. But yeah, so the symptoms, I've got those nerve pains, I get muscle spasms, and on top of the nerve pains, there are other pain symptoms as well. I get, from the rigorous bowel routine. Just for me to go to the bathroom every day to use the toilet is very painful, and it's something that can, if it's not done properly or if it's not a good day, then I could be, kind of don't want to use the word crippled, but, somewhat crippled by it in terms of being able to be productive and, whether it's writing, sending emails, doing whatever I need to do. It kind of just, I almost need to write that day off because of the pain that I get from that. Other ones include blood pressure and obviously struggle with sleep at times. But yeah, apart from that, obviously just the lack of movement is the main symptom, obviously.
And that causes quite a bit of anxiety.
Huge amounts of anxiety. I mean, having been in it for 6 years now, been in this wheelchair, I've gotten better at managing it. But, at the very beginning, it was horrible. If anyone imagines, if anyone's had anxiety, the feeling of being trapped in that situation can bring on very strong anxiety, and being stuck in a wheelchair, unable to move, unable to scratch an itch or reach out and grab a drink or whatever it is you need to do. You just feel completely trapped. And it's something that, I have worked on other techniques without having to resort to medications and, pharmaceuticals and things like that, even just through breathing techniques and, mindfulness and things like that. But then there are times where using cannabis can take that edge off the anxiety and can kind of just be a bit more freeing. And that's something I've really found that, it is really beneficial for me.
So in regards to all those conditions that you experience, you do have pharmaceuticals that you take. Can you explain how they affect you and what the side effects may be, how many you have to take, how often?
So I used to take more than 35 pills a day. I've managed to, just through being open to experiencing the pain and working through it, I've managed to reduce that down, and then through changing my main nerve pain medication to a newer, better version, I'm down to, I think, 12 to 15 a day, I think. And, there are side effects to a lot of those. What I've really found is by looking into the whole medicinal cannabis side of things, there is the possibility of being able to remove and get rid of some of those medications I take and replace them with medicinal cannabis. But then also, as we know at the moment in New Zealand, it's not that accessible. There aren't that many products you can get. And the variety in products is what can target so many different symptoms. And
so I think a good point to ask then is, You're in a wheelchair, you have all these conditions that you're struggling with, and even you find it difficult to get medicinal cannabis in New Zealand.
Well, it's more getting the right products. At the moment it's very limited in what we can get, and there's more that can come from going legal with it because of the array of products and ways of either ingesting or inhaling, or even topical creams and things like that. A lot of that's not going to be available through medical cannabis. It's more the recreational side of things, but can be applied medically. I use it for my symptoms anyway.
Cannabis you use, you currently would consider it a recreational product, but you use it for medicinal purposes.
Correct, yeah.
So it would be the same.
Yeah, and at times I use it for recreational side of things, like just when we are, when I'm hanging out with friends and we want to, I just find it weird that alcohol is the only legal, slightly mind-altering sort of substance that we're given the option of using that's approved for people to go out and use. And not everyone wants to go out and get drunk, and not everyone wants to have the effects that you get from alcohol. Like, some people want to chill out and have some laughs and some good friends and, good chats, deep and meaningfuls with some good friends, and have a more chilled environment. And I just think it's ludicrous that, the alcohol is really our only option.
And I guess for you, it must be, I just imagine, relatively more difficult to get drunk and to go through that whole process just to have a recreational experience rather than using cannabis.
Not only that, I've been advised not to with the medications I take. I have, gone out and drunk before. I'm at a point now where I just don't enjoy it. I'll have one or two drinks, and even that causes more pain the next day, even though I'm not really feeling the, whether you call them benefits, the actual effects. It's more of a social thing. And I've just, it's not something that I really enjoy anymore, because getting drunk and being stuck in a wheelchair and having just, especially if you're in a bar and people are loud and they're yelling, and then, I can't speak very loud because of, not having ab strength to project my voice. It's not an experience that I really enjoy anymore. I think the possibility of being able to use cannabis recreationally with friends, in controlled environments, I don't see why there's even really a question about that. I don't see what the difference is there really. It's, I just know that the great thing is we're creating a controlled environment. We're not creating the environment because it already exists, right?
It's a very good point to make, is that it does exist right now. Cannabis has not been invented, it's already available. And so we want to control that and limit the negative effects.
And it's not just available, it's easily available. Even for me, I think the first time I smoked was when I was 13 or 14, and even at that age, it was not hard to get. So, I think people have got to realize that what we are voting on is to bring some control around it, and people are going to have to be using ID to go and get it.
In regards to why you use cannabis, you talked about all the symptoms you have. Can you list off the benefits cannabis gives you with those symptoms?
Yeah, so with the, especially muscle spasms, at the moment I take baclofen, which is like anti-seizure medication, in order to keep my muscle spasms at bay, but I've reduced the amount that I take, and so by substituting a little bit of cannabis, and it's not every single day that I need it, but it just depends on my symptoms on the day. Some days my muscle spasms are stronger and a bit more out of control. I've found that it really helps with the nerve pains. It just helps settle things down if they are quite strong on that day. And then, I think apart from that, like just any pain, like I do get severe gut pain. And to be honest, it's something that I've spoken with some women about, and I feel like could be compared to what maybe period pain, bad period pains feel like for some women. And I've heard from them, from multiple women that cannabis is something that really helps settle those pains. And for me, when I get these lower abdominal pains, which are most likely bowel or bladder related, it can really help. Basically turn that pain from something that limits me from doing anything that day to then allowing me to be productive again.
And you find that it also helps with your anxiety and just comfortability in your wheelchair?
Yeah, and again, as I said, I have some days where I'm fine and I don't feel like I need it, but then some days it'll just, does get a bit too much, and it's, it's nice to be able to just take that edge off without losing control, without, any real negative side effects. So those are the muscle spasms that I get, and those can happen. I mean, that was a pretty mild one. There are ones that can really throw my body around. It can throw my arm off my armrest, and it's crazy that these drugs I'm having to take could be replaced by something so simple as cannabis.
And you find that cannabis helps alleviate those spasms?
Totally, yeah.
The psychoactive aspect of cannabis, you obviously experience it. Would you say that that's a negative for you, or do you say that it's actually quite enjoyable?
I mean, I'd say it's quite enjoyable. I think there have been a few times where it's been negative, but to be honest, the only real times I've had real negative effects is when alcohol's been involved as well. So if I've gotten drunk first and then I go and smoke weed, it's called greening out. You kind of get the spins, and it's not a fun experience. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who have only tried it once or twice, but have been in an environment where maybe they were drinking, or maybe there was an environment where they ended up with paranoia or just kind of not feeling comfortable. But again, it's sometimes it takes a little while for your tolerance to build up, and B, the environment you're in can play a huge part in it as well.
Have you ever experienced negative side effects from your use of cannabis, other than the brief one you said about mixing alcohol?
Not really, no. No, I think for me the only negative side, and it depends what I'm getting, and that's the hard thing, is with the products you're getting at the moment, you don't know what you're getting. Like, it's not like you even really know whether it's an indica or sativa or a hybrid. You're just getting weed, right? And it depends on the strain, but sometimes it can put me a bit too much inside my own head, but then there are other strains where it's great. You just feel relaxed and feel happy, and there's can bring creative thoughts. You can have just some good laughs with people. By far the positives outweigh the very few negatives, and those negatives, it's more just I sit quietly in the corner and crack up at stuff that I'm thinking in my own head. Like it's more of like I'm not as interactive socially.
You're introverted from it.
Yeah, and again, it just comes down to the strain you're getting. And so by legalizing things and knowing what you're getting, like if I want something to help with sleep, then I would lean more toward an indica. Whereas, if it's something during the day or something recreationally, or, whether it's wanting a creative mindset or some good laughs, and then a sativa might be the one. There's so many differences that legalizing it will be able to separate, and it'll make it clear what we're getting. Because then as well, like the difference between inhaling it versus ingesting it, the different systems within our body respond differently, and give different effects.
And then we're actually going to be able to even have those products, because I imagine right now it's probably almost impossible, unless a friend makes it for you, to get edibles and ingestibles.
Yeah, I mean, while I've been in New Zealand, there's been very, very few times I've had access to it. But with the amount of time I go back to the US, I mean, I spent a lot of time over there before my accident. As a wakeboarder, made a lot of friends, so I go back and visit quite often. And it's great to be able to try these things while I'm there to find the benefits. And That's why I was, more than happy to talk to you today and advocate for legalizing it, because I think that there are so many benefits that even the medical side of things at the moment just don't target.
Yeah. So you've seen recreationally legal markets overseas, you've experienced it, you've experienced the products, you've come back to New Zealand and experienced New Zealand's products. What's the comparison between the two in regards to quality, access?
Access is pretty easy here in New Zealand at the moment. But again, as I said, you don't know what you're getting as such. It's literally just, you want some weed? Cool, I want some weed. Yeah, like it's that. Whereas over in the States, it's like, okay, do you want a THC oil? Was a indica, a sativa, a hybrid? Do you want an edible that, and again, within those different strains, and was it gummies, or whether it's brownies, or whether you go for a tincture and, get some drops under the tongue. The variety is so much better there, and it does separate them into their categories for the different uses. I had an experience where I actually didn't even realize that I had it, but there was a disposable THC vape pen that I got while I was in the States, and it ended up in like the little tool pouch in my wheelchair, that when I got to Australia to go to a friend's wedding and do some rehab over there, we ended up finding it, and coincidentally it happened at such a good time because I ended up with a bladder infection while I was over there. I was doing rehab on the Gold Coast, then I was going to go down to Sydney and go to a buddy's wedding, which I was going to MC. And without that vape pen, I wouldn't have got through the week. Like the pain I was in, like I would have had to go to hospital, spent a whole bunch of money over there on hospital bills, possibly missed my friend's wedding, because usually with the bladder infections I get, I need to be in hospital for a week on IV antibiotics. Now, this vape pen didn't cure the bladder infection itself, but it soothed the symptoms and allowed me to get through that week, allowed me to get to my friend's wedding, MC the hell out of it, and and then when I got back home, I was able to get on the antibiotics that I needed to do. So that was just something I was very lucky to have found, that I had this old disposable one that I thought I'd lost. So.
And how much would that have cost in America?
$20.
And how long does that last?
It depends how much you use it. During that week, I was using it probably 10 to 12 times a day. And that lasted through that week. I'd already been using it while I was in the States before I'd lost it. And then, yes, they can last several weeks. It just depends how much you use it. I've had ones that have lasted me over a year because I only use them when I really, really need it.
So we're saying $20, you can literally use it for weeks. And right now in New Zealand, to get a simple CBD bottle that will last 2 weeks costs $400 or $500.
And again, the CBD doesn't target all the symptoms that we're trying to get. It's got its benefits, and it's great that it's been so widely accepted. You even see pro athletes advocating for different CBD companies now, and but there are so many other benefits when you include THC, whether it's a combination of the both. Yeah, there's, as what we were talking about before this interview was about the fact that for whether it's gastrointestinal and whether it's about bringing the inflammation down, CBD is so good for that. But there are other things like the spasms I get, and even like my dad's got Parkinson's disease. It's the THC that really helps with that. It's not so much the CBD. Or potentially the combination of the both that does it.
So I'll just quickly reference to the people back home. The THC acts on the CB1 receptors, which are in the central nervous system, and that's why it has an effect on the muscle spasms, Parkinson's, pain. CBD affects the CB2 receptors that are in the immune system, and that's why it affects the anti-inflammatories. So someone like Brad needs THC, and right now it is extremely difficult to get THC products in New Zealand. Everyone's talking about the availability of CBD. Great, yeah, CBD is great, but it's 20-30% of the whole pie. Yeah. And then what we're saying is there's actually a synergistic effect between CBD and THC where they amplify each other, and the CBD actually removes a lot of the negative side effects of the THC. And by negative side effects, I mean the psychoactive aspect, which to a lot of people isn't a negative side effect. It's actually quite an enjoyable experience.
But it's quite funny that this one plant has both something that adds the psychoactive, but then also takes it away as well. And if you can play around with those levels, then, because I don't want the psychoactive effect when I'm trying to be productive throughout the day. I just want the relax, of the nerve pains. I want the muscle spasms as well to be relaxed and just for me to be able to get through the day and be productive.
And so that pen that you got, the oil cartridge you got in America, it's not available here in New Zealand.
No. And even if I could get it, it would be black market. It would be something that someone's cooked up in their home and put together, and you don't know what solvents or what dilutants and things that people are using. It's just, it's crazy that we can't get these things, and if we are, we don't really know what we're getting in this country. So
I think that's a really important point to make, that the stuff sold over the counter is regulated, it's tested, it's controlled, there's licenses behind it, so you know exactly what you're getting. And we keep bringing up that point. Right now, it's a free-for-all. You have no idea what you're getting, and you specifically need different, let's call them products for different symptoms. And right now, weed's weed, right? And it's just hope for the best, which is quite an archaic system.
Yeah, and back to the benefits it has, with my dad having Parkinson's, at the moment, the drugs he's on, they make him hallucinate. Like, he sees things that aren't there. And if there's a possibility of trading that out for something that, even if it does give you that spacey psychoactive effect, it's so much better than seeing things that aren't there. And when I have to resort to something for pain, if it's not using cannabis, then it's like a oxy type, opiate that still makes me feel spacey, still makes me feel out of it. Sure, it helps the pain, but it's not that much different in terms of, that psychoactive effect that you do get or can get from cannabis. It's not that bad if you know, A, if you've built up a little bit of a tolerance, and B, you know how much to be taking. And
so education on how much is needed, but also the tolerance thing I think is important for people to realize, because a normal person may use a product that you have, and if they don't have a tolerance, they'll have quite an intense effect. Yeah. Whereas for you, because you use it regularly, you don't have those kinds of intense effects.
Yeah. And hopefully, I'm assuming that there will be the education, even in the stores, when you're buying it. Like, if you're buying it for the first time, it's like, okay, don't take this entire serving because your tolerance is going to be really low, so start small. It's going to be really interesting. I think taking the money out of the war on drugs and the black market at the moment, and being able to put that more toward the education, and also helping those who maybe are experiencing problems with substance abuse, which obviously you can get with any substance, that the money's going to be able to be put into that and helping those sorts of people, rather than where it's just being wasted at the moment on trying to hunt down people for growing a plant. But I think there's a lot of benefits that we haven't even discovered yet from it. I mean, I was watching a documentary where a guy goes into the middle of nowhere in Africa to find a certain strain that has, was it THC3 or something in it, which targets, can potentially help with diabetes. So it's incredible what this thing could potentially do. Yeah. But again, it's like people go, oh, well, you're talking medical. And it's like, well, opening up to recreational is going to drop the price, most likely, of medical products, and make the wider spectrum of products more available. It's crazy how powerful and how beneficial this drug can be.
Yeah, and you're right there. It's THCV that they are looking at for diabetes. Yeah. There's also CBG. There's off the top of my head, I can't name them all, but there's 113 cannabinoids that they expect all have their own medicinal properties. All right, a couple of last questions. You talked about a vaporizer. I think this is a really important point to get across to people out there that have no experience. Can you explain what a vaporizer is and the fact that you don't actually have to smoke cannabis?
So there are multiple types in terms of vaporizing. You can get vaporizers where you just put the plant itself, the bud, the flower, into the vaporizer, and it heats it up to the point where it vaporizes the THC and what's in the plant, so you can inhale that without the real harsh smoke that you would get from smoking it, whether it's a joint or whatever it is. You can also get oils, like a little cartridge of oil. Like in the US, you can get these cartridges, just like your sort of vape pens that you see most people out smoking, but there's either THC or CBD or different levels. You can, whether it's, again, different strains. And again, you're just vaporizing an oil, and it really doesn't have that harsh smokiness that a lot of people don't like. A lot of people don't like smoking, and even here in New Zealand, there was the whole smoke-free thing, push, and that's, legalizing this product doesn't mean we're encouraging everyone to go out and smoke. There are so many different ways to receive it, to ingest or inhale it, or even topical creams. But yeah, it's something that really, really helps me because you can, it's controllable dosage, rather than having a whole joint that it's sort of like having a whole plate, a whole meal on a plate. You feel like you have to finish that plate. Whereas just, push a button and vaporize a little bit, have a couple of hits, whether it's 1 or 2, whether it's 5, whatever you need, depending on the symptoms and depending on the person. So again, it makes it a bit more controllable in terms of the dosages that you get throughout the day.
Yeah, and dosability is, I think, probably very important for someone like yourself. Is the way I like to compare it is, imagine if you're drinking a beer and you didn't know if it was 4 standard drinks or 1 standard drink, and you're just like, well, let's find out.
Yeah, and you're so used to showing up with a 6-pack to each party. It's like, if you drink 6 of them and there's that much of a variety or difference in the potency, then it's a huge difference. Yeah.
And I think it's important point to make is vaporizers right now in New Zealand are actually, from my understanding, illegal. I've known people trying to import them in, and they've been stopped at customs and completely denied, which is outrageous. It's outrageous that people are trying to take a more healthier approach to using this, and we're not even allowed to. We've been pushed to resort to joints, bongs, pipes. So recreational legalization is going to make these vaporizers the norm. They're going to become very available, and every person who is a cannabis user will have one in their house.
Yeah, so it's just something that I feel like the beliefs around it from people who haven't used it or have maybe only tried it once and had a bad experience. It's about kind of trying to alter those beliefs around it, because there's a lot more evidence and there's been a lot more research that's gone into it all lately. And I feel like all of the evidence indicates toward it being a much less harmful substance than people think it is, a much more beneficial product in terms of its medical benefits, and outside of being prescribed, like being able to just use it for anxiety, for a little bit of pain or this or that. So it's just about trying to adjust those belief systems, and it's hard when they've been programmed in for many years. So yeah, I just hope that the younger generation get out and enroll and vote, because it is important. And I'll be honest, I mean, a lot of the time I spent overseas while there were elections going on, I never really voted when I was younger. And, I have enrolled. I will get out and be voting for this, and, I encourage others to get out and do the same.
That's such a big, important point, getting the youth out to vote, because if they do, this is going to be a landslide victory. But the problem is, like you said, when you're growing up, you don't see value in voting. So please get out, enroll, vote. You can make a difference. We'll come to our last two questions here. So one is, why do you want cannabis to be recreationally legalized?
I think the main reason is for the variety of products that it will open up. As we said before, the medical side of things, yes, there will. At the moment, it's mainly only CBD you can get. Hopefully, that'll open up over the years, but I'd imagine it's going to take a long time. So, the access to these products that really do have benefits, for me, from experience, I know that they do help, and they are better and less harmful than some of the prescribed medicines that I am currently on. So I think it's more about that access to A, knowing what you're getting, and B, that variety of different ways, whether it's an edible or whether it's vaporizing, smoking, or topical, whatever it might be. It's just that access to the whole range is what's going to be. I think for me, that's what I really like about the idea of legalizing it. Obviously, the decriminalizing side of things is incredible as well. That's going to be something that hopefully diverts a lot of the funding and the money that is currently involved in the industry and puts it to better use. And I just think, as well, I don't see why there shouldn't be another option out there other than getting drunk, because we've seen through so many studies how harmful alcohol is, and obviously there's studies that show that no one has ever OD'd on cannabis. So
literally never. So that leads us to our final question is, what do you have to say to New Zealanders leading up to the vote?
I think for those who are on the fence, it's really important to do the research and look into what's proposed at the moment, and also looking into some of the case studies of people that have benefited from it. So I think that's really important, just to do your own research. But then, as I said before, for the younger generation, it's just getting out and voting, making sure that you are a part of this decision, because it is an important one. And I think that we do need that younger generation to get out and vote, just because it's, as I said before, about the different generations and the way that we've been programmed to believe things about this substance. And it's, I think it's us younger ones that are, and I include myself in that, in my 30s, but we are going to be able to make a difference. And I think down the track, we're going to really see that this was an important decision and one that's benefited a lot of people. So especially the likes that are in situations like, like mine, with chronic pain, but also, everything else we've spoken about as well with the recreational side and the controls around it.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate you opening up about all this. It's valuable to get this kind of insight from someone who has the experience. You've seen the recreational market in America. You've experienced it. You obviously need it for your own medicinal benefits. You struggle to get the products you need. I think it's a very valuable message. So thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. And it was something that I was a little hesitant to open up publicly about, because the fact that it is still an illegal substance, and I do have a strong following, a lot of supporters that have been there through this whole journey since my spinal cord injury, and some of them may not agree with this, and so I'm putting myself at risk a little bit there. But I just think it's such an important topic that people need to be aware of, and people need to get out and vote, and let's get this thing legalized.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Pleasure. Cool. Nice. And cut.